Some stories shout to be heard, but the best ones arrive in the quiet. Welcome to Tales from Timber Creek, where every lantern glow, every mountain trail, and even the falling rain has a gentle story to tell. So pull up a chair, sit back, relax. I have a story to tell you. Almost home. The cold had settled in hard after sunset. It wasn't the kind of cold that announced itself with wind or snow, but just crawls in low and quiet, steals heat from you while you're busy thinking you can handle it. It makes the world feel smaller, sharper, more honest. I was driving without any great purpose. I told myself I was headed home, but that had been true in a general way for a while now. Sometimes a man drives because the motion keeps him from circling the same thoughts. Sometimes he drives because the road holds him steady when his mind won't. My headlights caught the shape at the edge of the shoulder just as my truck crested a long, gentle rise. At first, it looked wrong in the ordinary way, something that didn't belong where it was. Then the shape resolved itself into a person, laid out beside the road, like he'd chosen the place. I slowed and pulled over without giving the matter time to become a debate. The truck door opened with a familiar creak, and the bitter cold slapped me awake. Heavy frost edged the grass. The ditch glimmered as if even the darkness had raised its guard against the temperature. The man on the ground had his coat pulled tight, his body angled towards the sky. His eyes were closed as though he was napping in the afternoon sun, despite the fact that he was shivering. He awakened with a small jolt when I called out. "You all right there?" I asked. He turned his head just enough to look at me, and the irritation in his eyes caught me off guard. "I was," he said. That answer stopped me for a moment. I looked at the empty road behind us, then back to him. "It's freezing," I said, stating the obvious because sometimes the obvious needs saying out loud. "I know," he replied, as if to say I was missing the point. "You hurt?" "No." "Car trouble?" "No." He pushed himself up on one elbow, annoyed now. Not angry, just put out. "I was almost comfortable," he said, "and then you showed up." Most people ask for help or refuse it. Very few resent it. That told me something I couldn't quite name yet. "My name's Luke," he added, like that should settle the matter. "I'm Earl," I said. "And Luke, comfortable doesn't count for much when the night's this cold. You might not need help, but you need warmth." He stared at me for a long moment, weighing his options. His eyes were clear, not drunk, not glassy or confused, just tired in a way that sat deeper than muscle or bone. The kind of tired you could see in the sunken lines around his eyes and his face. He looked away, jaw tight. "I wasn't asking for a ride." "I know." That seemed to annoy him more. There's a point sometimes where doing the right thing stops being polite. I've crossed it before. I crossed it again that night. "Get up," I said. "You can be mad at me from inside the truck." He stared at me a long moment. I could see the calculation behind his eyes, whether to argue, whether to ignore me, whether to stand or lay back down and let the cold make the decision for him. Eventually, with a frustrated huff, he let me help him to his feet. Inside the cab, the heater came up steady and strong, warm air filling the small space and gradually pushing the cold out. Luke sat stiff at first, arms folded, like he was bracing himself for a lecture I never gave. For a while, we drove without talking. Luke sat stiffly, hands folded, gaze fixed out the windshield, as if he expected me to scold him or take credit for stopping. But I did neither. Eventually, the silence shifted. It softened. He drew a gentle, deep breath. You ever get tired in a way that sleep won't touch? Luke asked. That question comes dressed as curiosity, but it's really a test. I answered honestly. Sure have, I said. My honest answer seemed to turn the invisible key to where Luke kept things locked away. He told me he'd been walking a long time, not just that night, but longer than he could put into words. Said it felt less like traveling towards something and more like shedding pieces he didn't need anymore. I keep seeing places, he said, or remembering them maybe. It's hard to tell the difference. He spoke carefully, like he didn't want to exaggerate and risk spoiling the truth of it. He described mornings that unfolded instead of starting. Light entered the room slowly, warming the walls before it touched anything else. He could smell coffee before he was fully awake. Not sharp or bitter, but rich. The kind that promised time instead of demanding it. In those mornings, he said, nothing's in a hurry. I don't feel like I missed something while I was sleeping. He talked about floors that creaked only in certain spots. Boards wore thin by generations of steps. About how his body seemed to know where those places were without thinking. He said it felt good to move through a space that remembered him. There's land outside, Luke went on. Not showy, just enough to breathe. Enough that when I stand there, the horizon doesn't press in. He described dirt that held warmth even after the sun dipped low. Fence posts leaning ever so slightly, as if they'd decided long ago there was no need to stand perfectly straight. A path cut into the grass from years of walking on it, the earth remembering where feet preferred to land. The grass felt cool and soft on his feet. There's a dog, he said, and the words softened him. Always nearby, doesn't need calling, doesn't crowd me either. He just knows. Luke said the dog matched his pace perfectly, never pulling ahead, never lagging. Said it felt like walking beside a thought that understood you. Listening to him, I could see it. More than see it. I could feel the rightness of it, the ease. Luke's voice steadied as he talked, each image setting him more firmly into the seat beside me. He told me about a porch that faced west. Old boards, smoothed almost silver by weather, and years of hands resting on the rail. Evenings spent watching the sky do what it's always done, colors melting into one another without anyone timing them. In those evenings, he said, I don't think about tomorrow or yesterday. It's like time gives me a break. He talked about laughter carried on cool air, the sharp, reckless kind that only comes from children who haven't yet learned how heavy things can get. Bare feet slapping the dirt, the sound of the screen door opening and closing. And inside, Luke said quietly, there's someone moving around. I don't always see them. Sometimes I just know they are there. That's enough to make the whole place feel finished. Finished was the word he used, and he said it gently, like it wasn't something broken or used up, but something completed to its own satisfaction. He said waking up from those moments didn't leave him aching or disappointed. It felt more like stepping out of a warm room to tend to something temporary. The calm stayed with him, settled deep, the way heat lingers in your clothes after you come in from the cold. I used to think I needed more, Luke said. More time, more fixing, more chances to explain myself. But in those places, none of that matters. He paused, watching the road slide beneath the headlights. What matters, he continues, is that I showed up when I should have, that I stayed, that I paid attention to the right things. As he spoke, the tension I'd first seen beside the road was gone. The man who'd resented my stopping was quieter now, not withdrawn, but at ease, like someone who'd finally found the right words for something he'd carried in silence. The church appeared ahead of us just as the road narrowed, pale and patient at the edge of the night. I slowed without announcing it. Well, this is about as far as I'm headed, I said. Luke nodded as if he'd expected it. He sat there a moment, then turned to me. I'm sorry I was upset with you when you stopped. I didn't mean to be. It's fine, I told him. Sometimes peace doesn't like being interrupted. He smiled faintly, popped the door open, and stepped back into the cold. It should have bothered him more than it did. I watched him stand there for a moment, breathing steady, before I drove on. Later, I realized I couldn't remember the sound of the tires turning, the weight of the truck easing back onto the road, or even seeing Luke in the rearview mirror. The memory felt thinner than it should have, like something seen through the frost. I don't know where Luke was headed from there. I don't know what names he would have given the places he described if he'd tried to explain them to someone else. But I know this: no man lays himself down on a freezing night unless he believes warmth is close enough to reach. And when Luke talked about those places, the land, the porch, the quiet mornings, the laughter, there was joy in him. Not loud joy, the kind of joy that settles you instead of shaking you. The kind that says, without words, that everything important has found its place. He wasn't lost. He was almost home.